Welcome back to the This Is Your Moment podcast. My name is Colton Daly. I'm your host. And today, back to back, we've got on BioHackZack. We just had too much fire, too much passion in that last podcast and ran forever. And we just have way too much more to cover. I thought that was one of my favorite podcasts I've ever done. It was so much information, so much value, so much wisdom. Really enjoyed the energy in that. So welcome back, dude.
Thanks, brother. Good
Yeah.
to be here.
Let's keep running this. For those who don't know, BioHackZack, just the ultimate human optimization specialist. This dude is incredibly wise. I've learned so much, and if you haven't listened to the first episode, start with that. We got into the meat of it, and we're here to wrap up all this goodness and just keep providing some good value.
There's a lot to go into, that's for sure.
So I want to move on to the peptides, because before we even get into peptides, because I have zero knowledge about them, although I've heard about the benefits, the last two times I've seen you, you've put on, I am certain you've put on at least an inch of height. You are literally taller, which is impossible at your age.
I don't know, but maybe.
Well, you say you don't know, but you said that I'm not the only one who's told you that you put on height, right? You recently had like an ex-girlfriend or something that was like, I swear you've gotten taller.
Yeah, people have been telling me that every time they see me, because like I think people forget that I'm 6'4", you know? But I don't know if there's anything yet besides surgery that could actually increase your height, but peptides in general have revolutionized almost every aspect of my life, from performance in the gym, but also sleep quality, in my immunity, and in my appetite and ability to burn fat as well. So I think a good explanation would serve a lot of people. So
yeah, what is peptides?
Yeah, everybody knows what a peptide is. Insulin, for example, is a peptide. They are a assemblation of proteins found naturally within the body that signal certain cellular processes to occur. So every peptide that you might hear about is naturally occurring in the body, and they almost have performance-enhancing effects depending on the organ that they're targeting, whether we're talking the thalamus for the immunity or the pituitary gland for growth hormone, or even insulin-like growth factor. There's a lot of different applications for peptides, and why I am so fascinated by them is that they're safe. They're very safe. Many of them have no observed side effects.
Yeah, they're not like steroids.
Yeah, no, not like steroids at all. They don't down-regulate your body's natural production of these things. I'm sure everyone here has heard of Ozempic.
I have not.
So Ozempic is a really popular now weight loss drug, but originally it was FDA approved for diabetes. And basically, it mimics something called GLP-1, or it's a GLP-1 agonist. GLP-1 is involved with appetite regulation and satiety. So you take a once-a-week injection of Ozempic or tirzepatide, which is, I think Wegovy is the general name of that, and your appetite flatlines, where you don't feel spikes of hunger, and when you do eat food, you get full faster and you stay full for longer. So this is honestly being hailed as like a amazing fat loss drug for people that are obese, and I have firsthand experienced the benefits of it. I think many people could benefit from it.
So what you're saying is there's various different types of peptides according to what I currently need.
Yeah, dude, there's so many peptides, many of which are undiscovered because they're signaling molecules. They're tiny assemblations.
So they're kind of mimicking. Is it almost like stem cell?
No. So some peptides mimic and others are bioidentical. For example, a very popular peptide is called BPC-157, and it stands for Body Protection Compound 157, and it's found naturally in a healthy gut microbiome. And this stuff accelerates wound healing, soft tissue healing, bone healing significantly.
It sounds like stem cell a little bit.
Yeah, it's similar, much more affordable.
It can get pretty complex. So I guess as far as like the average viewer listening, what kind of peptides could I use that would enhance my life? Let's say performance, right? Let's say that I want to almost peptides in the form of like anabolic steroids. I've never done steroids. I never will. But is there a peptide that increases athletic performance, recovery, and then let's say increases your HGH levels?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just talked about BPC 157. Now that if you take it prophylactically, just like ongoing, you'll notice much faster recovery because it's actually healing you faster. If you have an injury, it could accelerate healing in that local area. It repairs the gut. It repairs the blood-brain barrier. It has so many various effects, But when it comes to HGH, they call them growth hormone secretagogues. And unlike taking growth hormone, you're super physiologically increasing growth hormone when you take growth hormone. But with peptides, you're actually stimulating your body to essentially max out its own natural production without any long-term deficits. I guess the big question with increasing growth hormone is a hormone found in everybody that turns on something called mTOR. I'm sure you've heard about it.
Nope.
mTOR is a tissue building pathway. When you work out, you eat protein, mTOR increases. Now, the one hypothetical risk of increasing growth hormone or increasing mTOR is cancer. The elevated tissue building will permeate into all tissues, including potential tumors.
Well, if you have a tumor, you're probably going to just increase its capability to grow as well.
Yeah. So, but that's all hypothetical because also when you take a growth hormone secretagogue, you get amazing sleep. And sleep is also, and melatonin is very anti-cancer. So it's like, it's also not new. Like Russia has been researching this stuff since some even earlier than the 80s. So this stuff has been around, but Russia has been gatekeeping this kind of stuff. And it's really exciting because of its rejuvenation properties. And you don't need to take it all the time to get benefits. There's one called pineolon, and it's a bioregulator, meaning it helps harmonize the gland of the pineal gland, which is central for wake, sleep cycles, and dreams. And you take this stuff for 20 days, and for the next 6 months, your pineal gland has just better function. So you're falling asleep earlier, you're getting better sleep architecture, better sleep quality, more vivid dreams, and you wake up earlier, and it's like a permeating long-term benefit from just taking it for 20 days.
Right. I see that if you're taking that, let's say there's a tumor, and you are taking that, which could grow it, you're also getting much better quality sleep. So you're going to be recovering. You're going to be, your body's going to have the ability to repair itself. So I see the benefit on both sides. I guess the first question is, can you just like go pick this up at the store? It has to be prescribed.
So yeah, you can get this stuff prescribed by medically sanctioned.
Do you have to inject it?
Yeah. Most of them you have to inject.
Is there any other form? Because I'm
you can take it orally, but honestly, like the reason you inject it is because many of these are very sensitive molecules that would not survive the gut, and you wouldn't absorb it in meaningful amounts. Some of them you can take them orally. These bioregulators you can, such as pineolon, but you get better bioavailability through injections, and it's just a little insulin needle subcutaneous like injection in your belly fat. You literally don't feel it. It's just the mental block of getting over it. But like when it comes to cancer, for example, there is an entire class of peptides that upregulate T cell attenuation, which is basically the natural killer cells in your immune system that identify cancer, identify viruses, identify various ailments in your immune system, and it makes your immune system smarter. So you could actually like supercharge your immunity. It's like anabolic steroids without the downsides.
Wow.
For various systems in your body.
I think that, obviously watching my dad with the whole chemotherapy process and a lot of witness, significant amount of friends or family at this point, I promise you I'm not taking that route. That is the absolute last line of defense. It's like the chemotherapy and the radiation is devastating.
It's what killed my dad.
I sincerely believe that my dad would have had another 5 years if he had just said F it and didn't do any treatment. And even if he still had the year that he had, his quality of life would have been 1,000 times better. Yeah. So it's beautiful to know that there's other alternative forms now that can be taken as a first line of defense. Now, I promise you, your medical doctor's not going to tell you that because they
just don't know about it.
Well, it's also a multi-billion-dollar industry, chemotherapy.
Yeah, so. And it's unfortunate because peptides can be a multi-billion-dollar industry as well. My dad passed away from leukemia at the age of 42. A week after my 4th birthday.
So young.
So for me, cancer has been a primordial fear of mine since before I was even really a conscious person. And I do believe that it's influenced my journey of health optimization because he died at 42 of leukemia. His mom died at 39 from a brain tumor. So there's some sort of genetic thing that I just don't want to turn on. So that's honestly catapulted me into the world of health optimization. And yeah, all that being said, I still, I believe there is more benefit to experimenting with some of this stuff than there is risk. And that is after a lot of careful consideration, because that's the last thing I want to do is get myself sick. And yeah, he died from radiation and chemo, not from the leukemia.
Yeah.
It definitely made it worse.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, dude. And I just want to like speak life over that situation right now. Like, let go of that fear, because you're gonna break that generational curse.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm way healthier than he ever
You're
was.
the most incredibly healthy man. You're doing all the right things, so you can let that fear go. Because I don't think any weapon formed against you is gonna prosper, man.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I've started at a young age, so yeah.
All right, so you've utilized, I know you had a knee injury recently. Have you been utilizing these peptides in your own journey for how long?
I blew the doctor away when I told him that I broke my leg 3 weeks prior. What happened, I was running on the beach. I planted my foot sprinting to catch up to a soccer ball, and I hyperextended my knee. It popped backwards. The pop was heard 30 feet away. It wasn't just like a feeling. It was an auditory pop, and I fractured my tibia. I crushed my meniscus. I had moderate.
Dude, what are you doing? What the heck?
And anyway, so this protocol I think can really help a lot of people that have had injuries. For one, you have to rest. You have to stay off of an injury, whether that's your elbow, your shoulder, your hip, your knee. You have to give that joint a break. And then you have to really increase the amount of amino acids you're consuming, and also decrease the amount of inflammation. Right. Especially if you're not active. If you're going to be resting, you don't need a lot of calories. Right. So all those calories were basically amino acids, protein, and fats, just basically the raw building ingredients for tissue. And then about a week after that, I introduced something called BPC 157 and TB 500, which are peptides for connective tissue, for ligaments, for muscles, and for bone. And I would inject it directly into the pain points in my knee, and I'd feel around. Of course, if you're doing this, you have to honestly be under the guidance of a medical professional.
Massage it around and stuff.
Yeah, you want to make sure you're being as sterile as possible, because you're doing something medical to your body. So sterilization is very essential to that. Aside from that, I've also been doing PEMF. And pulsed electromagnetic fields, absolutely, I feel like besides the peptides, are the one thing that allowed me to walk pain-free 3 weeks after breaking my leg. I'm not totally out of the woods yet. I'm still, in the healing process, but I can stand up from this chair in a squat. I can walk upstairs, and it happened like 33 days ago. The doctor was blown away, and I told him everything I was doing, and he hadn't heard about half of it. And it's a damn shame, because this man has the ability to significantly help people, and he is just totally unaware of it. And it honestly breaks my heart to know that people can't get true 21st century healthcare.
Yeah, I hope that I don't know what the agency is, but I hope doctors are required to do like continuing education, especially at that level. Like, you are the front line of the human health and existence, so they should know what peptides are. They should know all these various
some
factors.
do. Yeah, some definitely do. The problem is, for, let's say, PEMF, for example, it is FDA approved to accelerate bone healing. It's been studied for over 100 years. But it would need to be studied for the tibia. It would need to be studied for the femur. It would need to be studied for the meniscus. For a treatment to be approved, there needs to be multiple studies proving it for every single ligament and tissue in the body. That's why, hyperbaric oxygen. Have another medical story. My grandma had lung cancer. She was too weak to do radiation and chemo, so she was sent to hospice. And I asked the doctor, I'm like, well, she has lung cancer, so you guys have a hyperbaric chamber downstairs. Like, why doesn't she do a hyperbaric treatment? And he looked at me perplexed. He's like, why would I do that? That's not approved for lung cancer. I'm like, yo, for one, it absolutely is. Right. Maybe it's not FDA approved, but it is used as a treatment. And do no harm. Like, there's no harm in giving her that. Meanwhile, this is the same guy that was feeding her Ensure with high fructose corn syrup and canola oil, which are hyper-inflammatory, which feed a disease state. It's just a real shame how behind. Honestly, it's not even that it's behind. It's that it's institutionalized. There is so much money influencing our medical care. It really forces us to become our own doctor, or lean on people that have actually done the research that can help them heal faster and prevent diseases,
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's sad, honestly.
Well, brother, I'm really sorry to hear about your dad, dude, but I do know that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, totally agree.
I know he'd be incredibly proud of you today.
Thank
and
you.
you had to go through that to be the man you are today.
Absolutely.
So I think that, the reason you are so wise and have such a calling to share this information with the world, you had to go through that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're going to save a lot of lives in the process, and you're going to enhance the lives of a lot of people. And, similar to what I felt with my brother, that if like God would have came to him in those last days and was like, look, I'll give you two options. You can stay here on earth and continue to deal with some of the things you're dealing with and struggling, or I can take you with me, but I will reveal to you the plans I have for your son or your little brother and the lives he's going to impact and the world is going to change. And I know for a fact that my brother would have been like, let's ride out, dude. Let's go on to the next one. And I feel like your father would have done the same, dude. So I'm proud of you, bro.
Proud of you.
Yeah, man.
Wounds to wisdom.
That most definitely did. And so let's, I guess we'll kind of come to the next conversation I know you've been wanting to talk about. You said in the very beginning, you told me, I was like, oh boy, dude, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
But you've got some theory on what you call UAP'S, which you said something around aliens. So I'm interested to see why you're so passionate about it and how you think this is going to benefit us as a society.
Well, there's a lot there, honestly. Because for one, UAP stands for unidentified aerial phenomenon. It's the new nomenclature for UFO. And what we're seeing over the last 5 years or so is the slow disclosure of the UAP reality. And it's important. It's arguably the most important thing that'll ever happen to us in our lifetime, because it is one thing that affects every single institution of humanity. And you're very interested in the Bible and theology. We're literally talking about the same thing. We're talking about a biblical event happening right over our heads, and most people just think it's little green men flying in flying saucers. It is way more than that, and it's way bigger, and it's going to totally open up the aperture of our worldview and our place in the universe, our place on Earth. And I think the reason why more people are not interested in it is because they don't even know what questions they should be asking. And
well, first of all, it's terrifying, right? Because any species that has the ability to visit us, because I've seen some of the videos that are getting released, right? Like from the military, from other sources, and the way in which these people these entities are traveling defies our laws of physics.
yeah,
Right. So it's like, one, we don't even stand a chance if there were to get anything combative. And two, we've been withheld this information, which they probably had for a really long time.
yeah, for one, we are automatically assuming that it's extraterrestrial, that it's people from other planets. The evidence does not support that. The evidence supports much more that they are more interdimensional. They have the ability to phase in, phase out. And interestingly enough, it appears that they also have the ability to alter consciousness remotely and directly, which is really concerning, I think. But the truth is, it's nothing to fear, in my opinion, because, for one, we're talking about nature. It's natural, and it's been here arguably as long as we have. And we've co-evolved with these others, whatever they may be. And I think there's a lot of unknowns, and a lot of people think that the government has the answers and they're keeping it secret from us because we can't handle it. I am more inclined to believe that they actually don't understand, and that the truth is, I feel like the truth can't be hidden for very long. It has been hidden for a long time, but due to the age of the internet, due to the speed of which information gets discerned now, I think there is a inevitable disclosure, and technically disclosure has already happened. David Grush just testified before Congress under oath. He was a presidential advisor for Obama. He was literally tasked with giving Obama classified information to make decisions that affected the national security of the world and of America. And So
what's so significant? I did see that interview, by the way, and a lot of things you're actually saying are biblical, right? We talk about, like, let's say celestial beings. Let's say if they were angels per se.
Yeah.
The Bible actually talks about some of their characteristics and their powers. They do have the ability to alter consciousness. They do have the ability to alter some of the physical realities if an agenda needs to be done from a spiritual level. So I don't know. Who knows, right? Could be extraterrestrial. Could be let's say the spiritual realm,
Yeah.
metaphysical. But why is this so significant?
Well, let's back up a little bit to what you were just saying. So there's an amazing book called American Cosmic, written by a theological professor, and she was researching Catholic miracles, like verified Catholic miracles in the Vatican, like things that were verified by multiple sources to have actually happened. And she was researching it for a thesis, and she started noticing a lot of similarities between those accounts and then modern UFO accounts. Things such as spontaneous healings, balls of light, beings of light. And her hypothesis now is that we're actually all talking about the same thing, but we're looking at it through a different lens, being in the modern era. And 70 years ago, when Roswell happened, the government basically said a flying saucer crashed in Roswell, New Mexico. And overnight, there was a swarming of media in that town. They basically realized that that was not the right story. We need to understand this before we discern this information to the public. Back then, people were much more religious, much more godly. And now, in the 21st century, we worship science as the new God. And what represents the pinnacle of science? The flying saucer. And I'm under the impression that I learned from Diana, the author of this book, that this is the next religion. This is the next symbol, the new cross, because we worship science now. And that represents the quantum leap into the future. And I think it's also really important because it's going to be the theory of everything. It's going to help us learn about our story as humans, because if you read every single, not only biblical, but Mesopotamian and Aztec and all these ancient tribes, they all say the same thing, that powerful beings from the sky came to earth and mated or copulated with the sons of man and the daughters of God, and basically created a new race.
So that is biblical, right? So if you look at, like, in the book of Genesis, it says that there were giants in those days, right? But
the
Nephilim. The Nephilim. I don't know what they're actually called.
Yeah, neither do I.
Let's say the Nephilim. So that's in the book of Enoch, which is not a part of the Bible. It's a part of the Apocrypha. Right? The reason it was taken out of the Bible is because there are some contradictions. And so although those books can be real information, the reason they weren't put in the original canon of the 66 books is because of the contradiction. Now we can still utilize those and look to them for knowledge and for understanding and insight, but you kind of got to be careful too, because some of that stuff can be special knowledge from, let's say, the other side as well. There's some things that we weren't necessarily supposed to know. But in the spiritual, if we do have what the Nephilim were, this is the dark side. So in the Bible, when we talk about the devil or Lucifer, the reason he's here is because of his rebellion. He was kicked from heavenly realms, right? Because people think that Satan, the devil, is the opposite of God. That's very wrong. Satan was an archangel, along with Gabriel and Michael. So Satan's opposite is Gabriel and Michael. The whole way the angelic realm is orchestrated by a chain of command, very similar to our military. So you'd have president, let's say God, vice presidents, 5-star generals, et cetera, et cetera. What happened was when Satan actually rebelled and was kicked from heaven, he was so powerful that he took 1/3 of all the angels that were in heaven, and they were rebelled with him, and they were cast down. They were cast down here. All right. So in the spiritual realm, they've been here far longer than we have. Their bodies, their celestial bodies, are far more superior and advanced than ours are. All right. So it's like for them to enter into our bodies would be a downgrade. They wouldn't do that. But there is a difference between fallen angels, aka like devils, and evil spirits. So what actually happened was, yes, the Nephilim, this crossbreed, was when that demonic realm, those beings would have actually intercourse with human beings and created this off race. So when you had those giants, people like Goliath, right, that are 10 feet tall, 12 feet tall, like that's not normal. Kind of, I think it's like the lineage of Cain, you know.
So let's like reframe everything you just said and like look at it in a more literal and less metaphorical lens. Yeah. So like this could also be paralleled with the story of Prometheus. Prometheus was a Greek god that gave man fire, gave man knowledge. And what happened to Prometheus? The other gods banished him from their godly realm, casting him to a mountain to have his liver eaten by an eagle every single day.
Very fascinating.
And what is that saying? If you zoom out for a second, it's saying some non-human gave man knowledge and got basically casted away from the other gods.
Oh, dude, even stop me right there. That's the book of Genesis. That's the Garden of Eden.
You're saying the same thing.
Because the Garden of Eden, right? They were put in there. They had the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which was like obviously godly wisdom. When man ate it, he became like God, knowing the difference. He knew too much. Now, what deceived him? The serpent, right? Who obviously resembles what we call like Lucifer. So a parallel story, and I wouldn't even doubt that story probably was far before the Bible was even written, before Moses' time.
Yeah.
And so humans had to come up with a way to conceptualize and get this information out and create. So it's like these are parallel stories.
Yeah. And it's like, are these stories of our history, or are these like parables for us to follow to have a moral grounding? And also, what is the evolutionary benefit of morality? Like, why is being, like, if you look at it through animalistic terms, like, honestly, killing people to get your way and to, plunder to get resources, that would equate to more power, more life. So, like, why is it that morality is actually the governing, we associate good and evil? Like, why is good and evil a thing? It's just an interesting thought experiment.
Right, well, I mean, I think there's just certain universal laws, and you reap what you sow. So it's like.
But does an alligator follow universal laws?
I think according to the way he's genetically coded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you're right. Yeah. Yeah. But
like he can't go into. Well, I think gators actually can. I was going to say like the freezing cold because it's cold blooded, but I'm pretty sure some of them actually stay under ice water and like hibernate for like 6 months.
I'm
but
not
like
sure.
you couldn't. Yeah, I mean, if they're out of context, they're going to die.
So yeah, when we talk about demonic possession, it honestly parallels with UFO abduction stories where someone's paralyzed in their bed. There's another being in the room that has some sort of intention with their genetics, some sort of like interest in their genome. There is people claim to have been impregnated by these entities, and it's very scary, disturbing stuff. But there is a lot of parallels with ancient stories of demonic possession and copulation.
Even biblical, there's many stories where angels, like you go to the book of Exodus, the whole Moses thing, when the plagues were sent, right? These angels would come and they would be the ones to send the plague or to send the locust, etc.
It's like, why is that?
So even going to like supernatural powers and abilities, the story of Exodus, when the waters were split, right? When like the Jordan River, not the Jordan River, whatever that, the Red Sea or the Dead Sea was split. Like there's some supernatural that is at hand. So let's just sum all that up. We don't know what it is. Okay, we have theology, we have Bible, we have other stories. Let's just say there are some type of supernatural, metaphysical entities in, let's say, a spiritual realm. Now what? Like, what do we do with that?
Well, I think for one, there is. They don't want us to know. They don't want us to know their intentions publicly, whether they have some way, shape, or form disclose that to some of our rulers. We don't know. We will probably never know. But there seems to be an interest in humanity, and there seems to be an interest in our consciousness and our development. And it's interesting how much religion has shaped every culture, and it makes you think, did different groups shape humanity to change our genetic expression over time? There's a lot of really disturbing and interesting implications of generational overview of genes. Like, what if this non-human intelligence actually has committed genocide because certain gene traits might have been less favorable for their altering? That's, I think, a real question that we need to consider, and that would also, it's like kind of, it can get deep really quickly.
You look at, we talked about some of that special knowledge, for example, right? You look at some of the elitisms, like you have the Masonry, you have the Illuminati, right? Like some of this stuff. Of course, they are like in that realm, like being fed information. Right. So what you're saying is still parallel to the Bible. Because,
it is.
So the book of Ephesians, for example, I'm going to give you the scripture. This may have been Paul who wrote this. I'm assuming it was. He said, "For our fight is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, and against spiritual forces of evil in heavenly places." right? So
now,
like,
if you look at it, yeah.
so what's going on here and what's going on in the opposition that we're facing? Like, this is a fight that's been fought in spiritual realms for a long, long time. So we're in opposition to something that's not physical.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting too. The first intact flying saucer the U.S. government ever became in possession of was in 1937 from Italy, from the Vatican. And I don't know the origin. That hasn't been disclosed publicly, but it is assumed to have been from an archaeological dig. And I find that very interesting because the Vatican knows. The Vatican absolutely knows, and I think they have a lot more information about our background that I think would be very disruptive to the average Catholic and the average person if it became widely known. Because the reason why there's so much secrecy is it's going to affect every single institution that we have on Earth. And I think that we think COVID was bad with like destabilization. That would pale in comparison to this, because we're talking not only theological and historical, we're talking about physics and science. We're talking about our trust in our government, because our government has lied to us. And honestly, we're all adults. I think we're all privy to what the nature of reality is. I think we all are innately deserving to know what the nature of reality entails. And I also think it can bring in life and death. Like, I think it's going to be a potential unifying theory of a lot of our questions as humans. And I think that it's going to be a somber day, I think, for humanity when we learn the truth.
I mean, well, I don't know if you've ever, looked into the book of Revelations. It's the final book of the Bible, but it's essentially a prophecy of what's going to happen in the end times when all hell breaks loose, right? And basically, God kind of gives the enemy, right, we'll say Lucifer, whatever it may be, the opportunity to have his rule for a certain amount of years. And that's when all these things that have already been, like the Bible says, like great earthquakes and famines, and these crazy things that are beginning to happen. It's called the first birth pangs, right, of the final day of Revelation. But I think one of the beautiful things about this whole concept is, like, the enemy, the darkness, we do need it for our expansion. It is contrast. It's essentially like what we went through of losing our family, right? That caused us to evolve and become even greater beings of light for the good. And it's like all these things that continue to happen advance our species. So like going to some of the scriptures, I know in Genesis, in the story of Joseph said, like, what the enemy meant for evil, God meant for good. God worked for good. Romans 8:28, for God works all things together for the good. So it's like the dark side just continues to take L's, and the good side, eventually it works in that favor. Going back to our battles, not against flesh and blood, like this stuff is happening in spiritual realms. And I know for me, going down that rabbit hole of exploring all of these things can be a deep, deep, deep rabbit hole. And essentially, there's only so much power I have. Yeah. And so I find a peace in a lot of that, knowing that I'm going to let God be God. Yeah. Right? Like, this is his battle, not mine. Yeah. And it's win after win after win after win. If God is for me, who can be against me? Like, all throughout theology. So having that faith gives me so much peace in this process. Yeah. But also knowing, like, it's my job to partner up with his agenda and be willing to be used as a vessel. Because there's, in the words of Martin Luther King, darkness can't cast out darkness. Only light can do that. Right? Hate can't drive out hate. Only love can do that. So my role and what I've kind of signed up for until the day I die is just to be love, to be light. There's only so much I have control over. And, in the words of Jordan Peterson, who am I to change the whole world without first cleaning my own room? Yeah.
Heal yourself to heal the world.
That's right. Right. In the words of Marianne Williamson, she says, and as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. Absolutely. And as we are liberated by our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Our presence.
Wow. It makes me think of the word enthusiasm. Enthusiasm, if you break it down, and theo means God, and asm means generating within. So, God, like when you're enthusiastic about something, that is God generating within you, and that's infectious. Right.
Right. Well, I think this is where the Western world, I think, really struggles. And so, as a Christian, I don't just I'm willing to explore. I'm not so dogmatic, So I think that like religious studies is really important. And earlier this year, I had kind of started to research some of like, let's say the Buddhist practices, because I would notice these monks and that would meditate all day, and they are some of the most like loving, peaceful beings that have so much joy, like all the fruits of the spirit that the book of Galatians talks about. And honestly, I think that they are almost like 90% of them are far closer to God than most Christians are.
Yeah.
So on one aspect, when it comes to the Bible, like, oh, only if you believe in Jesus Christ, you go to heaven. Like, maybe, right? But I find it really hard to believe that a beautiful, righteous, just God is going to take somebody like that believes in Buddha, that is so full of light, that is so full of love, and does amazing things. When he gets to heaven, be like, you didn't make it. So I don't know all the answers, but what I do know is they have been willing, or what they're able to do is when they meditate is connect to source. And you see the Western world, we chase all of these things to find this happiness and this love and this peace we're looking for. We think that when we're this, and when we have this house, and when we have this money and this achievement, then we'll be happy. So we're chasing everything outside of us to find what we call happy, right? Where what I've realized is that everything we think we want, we only want because of the feeling we think it's going to give to us.
Amen.
So if it's like, I want a Lamborghini, I don't actually want a Lamborghini.
You want the heads to turn.
Right? I want the feeling I think having that Lamborghini is going to give me.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, it's going to give me happiness. Where I look at these monks and they're like, dude, y'all got it all wrong. I can sit here, right here, close my eyes, go right to the source, and I can experience that happiness, joy, peace, and love you're trying to seek outside of you, which is the chasing after the wind. It's never enough. It never ends.
Yeah. I love the word omist. I consider myself an omist, where I see truth in all religion, but no religion is the truth. And I find that to be a very beautiful practice of staying open and being open to wisdom and philosophy. Because like, you got to think, like, what about the people that existed before Jesus? Like, did they go to heaven?
Well, Buddha existed before Jesus.
Yeah. So it's like, I think people that are encouraging, that are living within their highest awareness, I think right now as a society, we're operating by our lower energy centers, our need to eat, our need to win, our need to have sex.
The egoic state.
Yeah, the egoic state, the lower chakras.
Unawakened state, yes.
But it is our duty to awaken and to raise our energy and to essentially exist in a super conscious state, or at least strive for that at all times. And whenever you feel like you're being tested, you always know the answer. You just need to ask your heart. And it's always that first, like, you know the answer for every issue you're going through. It's just sometimes it's hard to accept it.
Yes.
And I believe that if you are striving for consciousness, higher consciousness, then that is striving towards God.
Most definitely. And I think that is the journey we're here to do, is to continue to expand and evolve. And I think like all of this is for the expansion of consciousness. So as a race, as a human civilization, we're getting closer and closer towards that enlightenment state. Right? A lot of the works of Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth and the Power of Now. Yeah, it's quite fascinating because, like, I don't know if you've heard of the book Power versus Force by David Hawkins, but he created the maps of consciousness, right? So there's levels of consciousness. We talk about like the lowest human nature, the egoic state where you're unawakened, right? On that autopilot within the matrix, and on those lower levels, you have like, it's just primal, like almost a survival and just trying to temporarily get pleasure. Where as you climb that chain of consciousness and go from force to power, which is more of the spiritual side, you get those true fruits of the spirit, and you start to realize they're not outside of you. But at the very top, it goes from like 20 all the way to 1,000. He says that, and I don't even know if he's particularly a Christian man, but this came to him in like a revelation and like a dream. So at level 1,000, which is pure consciousness, right, which is like God. Yeah. He said the only person that ever lived there was Jesus. But he said Buddha lived at 997, like 997. Like some of these great spiritual teachers were there, dude. They were like fully awakened, but Jesus was the Son of God. He was pure consciousness in human form. So a lot of that really opened my eyes, and I'm like, well, why on earth wouldn't I go listen to Buddha? Right? Who was like, dude, he was tuned in, tapped in, turned on. And just to end that, by the way, like a lot of what Jesus said, like Jesus was pointing us to the truth. Now you had to have eyes to see and ears to hear to be able to understand the deeper meanings of what he said. But when he said, for example, the kingdom of God is within, The kingdom of God is within. So you really want to, God is not outside of you.
Yeah.
He's within you. He is the essence of who you are. You are the I am, an extension of it, right? So it's like, if God was the light bulb, you are the light. You come from him. He created you in his image. With his breath was man created. And I think we create this like duality where we become separate. And in the words of Buddhism, that's where suffering roots from.
Yeah, it's like people be like, oh, please God, do that. It's like, no, like you are the magnet that can make things happen, you know? Like we were talking the other day, and it's like, why would God have there be people starving and suffering? It's like, why do you allow there to be people starving?
Yeah, we got to take some responsibility too,
exactly.
Right? He's given us all the provisions.
Exactly. You're alive. You're awake. You see the problems that are on Earth right now. So how are you cleaning up your room, you know?
You know, I was on a run recently, and it was fascinating because there's a couple variations, a couple different names for God in the Bible. You know, you have like Elohim, you have like Jehovah Jireh, you have God, you have Yahweh. And when in the book of Exodus, when Moses had that burning bush moment, and God was like, yeah, you're gonna go free my people. Moses is like, bro, like, do you know who you're sending me to? This is Pharaoh, like the most powerful guy in the world that can kill me. And you're gonna tell him to free my people. Who do you want me to tell Pharaoh is sending me? And God says, go tell Pharaoh, I am that I am. So God, essentially another name for God is I am. And I was like, that's fascinating.
Wow.
I was like,
it's all things.
I was like, what is, yeah, right, it's all things. But then I was on a run, and I was like, I am. And as I was running, I was like, is there any other like moment or time in the English language when we say I am without like following it up with something? You know, like I am doing this, or I am Colton. And I was like, oh, I get it. God is the OG, the original I am.
Yeah.
So when I say I am Colton, what I am saying is I am God, extension Colton.
Wow.
All right. So like I am God, the Spirit of God, soul, extension soul, Colton.
Power, bro. That's powerful right there. Makes me like wonder how many holy men, I think everyone's holy, but how many messengers or messiahs, for lack of a better word, are alive right now that are not seeking any recognition but are healing people and turning them on.
I would say we're both sitting in front of one right now, right? Like
Beautiful.
Jesus said he gave us the power, the same power in him is in us, dude. He said you will do far greater works than I do. Right? That same Spirit of God is within you. Those same gifts of the Spirit and those miraculous healings that all his apostles ended up getting, we have within us. Now we have certain variations of those gifts and what we can do according to the gifts that God gave us.
Yeah.
But we are the hands and feet. And I think that when people talk about the church, we so often think of a building. That's not what the church is. The church is actually the body of Christ. It's certainly not a building. Now, and the unfortunate thing is this religion has gotten so convoluted because, you know, we talk about the darker realms and stuff like that. The Bible says that the devil masquerades around as an angel of light. He disguises himself as an angel of light. He's not stupid. His intelligence is 10,000 times beyond ours. You think if the devil shows up to you, he's going to come in all red with horns on him and a tail or a cape? Certainly not. He's brilliant, bro. So if the devil really wanted to mess up the agenda of God and of pushing forward this agenda of light and consciousness, I bet you the first place he's going is to the church. And the first place he's going is to bring people into the church that are not truly of God to convolute it, to skew you, to steer you away, to bring judgment and condemnation and guilt and tell you you're unworthy.
There's that one, I don't know his name, that one evangelical guy on TV, and you know who I'm talking about, right? He's a really
Joel Osteen?
Dude, like, you see, I see evil in his eyes, bro.
Like the guy, the really soft-spoken guy, long hair, curly?
No, this guy, like, I wish we can show a picture of him, or a video of him, but it's like, yo, like, this person, like, there's some negative force behind
that doesn't
him.
surprise me, and there's thousands of them, right?
Yeah.
Let's say, like, of all the pastors on there, like, dude, not all of them are ordained, not all of them are anointed, and there's many that are for the opposition.
Yeah. Have you ever read Be Here Now or know about that story?
Yes.
So, like, Maharaji, that book right there was the most important book I ever read because it taught me that the spiritual realm is real, like definitively, like because Albert or Ram Dass went to India.
I love Ram Dass, dude.
Yeah, and he wanted to discover what LSD was, so he wanted to find a holy man to give them LSD, and what ended up happening, like this person, Maharaji, could read his thoughts before he spoke.
That was his teacher. Yeah.
Yeah, and I found like it gave me so much confidence in faith that there is more. And it makes me think like how many holy men are like people that are incarnations of, whether it's Hanuman or Kali or what, like, you know what I'm saying? Like how many people are incarnate right now that are actually of the most highest vibration and like have the ability to touch you and change your life, say a word and change. Like, I know we all can, and we all have that divine spark, but I do think there's people that are just like way higher on the totem pole as far as like how many times they've been on Earth.
Well, most certainly, and that still happens a lot today, right? But you have to be around it. You have to be in environments where that's happening.
Yeah.
Right? And you can be touched by that too. But speaking of Ram Dass, dude, and what's the teacher's name?
Maharaji.
He's like Ram Dass, like the way he talks to him. I think Ram Dass is awesome. You know, between him and Alan Watts, like Alan Watts is like very dark and nihilistic, and I think he died for alcohol addiction, right?
Yeah,
so
he did.
He was very wise, but that's kind of like that philosophy that kind of leads you to a meaningless existence. But Ram Dass, I remember he asked his teacher one time. He's like, what's the teacher's name one more time?
Maharaji.
He's like, Maharaji, what's death like? Maharaji's like, it's like taking off a really tight shoe.
Powerful.
Yeah, it's
I
like
love that.
The
yeah.
spirit, like you can let go of the dirt suit in this like decaying body, and now you're free.
And one of the most powerful things that I have embodied from Maharaji, who was a incarnation of Hanuman, the monkey deity of Hinduism, who represented childlike playfulness of the heart and love. And Ram Dass was asked Maharaji, sir, like, how do I stay in this state? How do I serve God? How do I come back to America and actualize this experience? And it is so simple. Love everybody and tell the truth. And that is like, if we could all just learn that, every other biblical text can go on the wayside. It's the golden rule. Treat others as you'd want done to yourself. Love everybody and tell the truth.
Well, when the Pharisees came to Jesus and they said, out of all the law, because they were trying to trap him, they wanted to kill him for like blasphemy. They said, out of all the law, all of Moses' law he was given by God, which one's the most important? And Jesus says, well, there's two, and they're one and the same. He says the first one is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. He goes, the second one is equal to it. Love your neighbor as yourself. He says this sums up the entire law. But it's fascinating when you think about that, by the way. You know, we talked about the kingdom of God is within. And if they're one and the same, which is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and the second one is to love your neighbor as yourself, well, hold on a second. Right? Therefore, he's saying, in order to love your neighbor, you have to love yourself. But if the Bible also says to hate yourself is to hate God. So if you reverse that, to love yourself then is to love God. So we talked about the I am there, right? Well, then that must be therefore I am, right? And so put those two together. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. He said the second one's the same. Love your neighbor as yourself. So I'm like, I went down that rabbit hole, bro.
It's all a mirror.
I do want to make it clear that there's a lot of people that say I am God, and I get what you're saying now, right? Like before I used to think that was like blasphemy, like bro, you're not God.
Yeah.
Now I get it. Like
yeah.
I am not the light bulb, but I am the light. So I am Colton. I am God extension, Colton.
To say you're not God is like to say a drop of water is not the ocean.
That's correct. That's such a good analogy, right? So it's like God is the ocean, you are the drop of water, but you are the ocean.
You're part of the whole.
Well, bro, this has been amazing.
It's been awesome.
You know, we've been here like 6 hours today, kind of setting up this podcast, but we're probably over 2 hours into this, and this has been such an intellectually stimulating conversation. And I find it very challenging to have these type of conversations because there's not a lot of people that are willing to go to the depths to really explore this, who have eyes to see and truly have a heart to seek and explore. So I love being able to see some of your viewpoints and some of your perspectives, because what's so beautiful about having an open heart and not coming from a place of judgment is oftentimes you expand my perspective and you add to what I know. And sometimes you're able to allow me to remove some of the hindrances or the false beliefs that I have. So I just really appreciate you being someone who's so open and having a heart to continue to grow, be a light, and expand your goodness to the world, dude. So
thank you. Amen. Yeah, this has been amazing. Imagine if we had some glucose in our system, how much longer we can go.
We haven't eaten all day. We've just been pumping ourselves with caffeine, and this is but
this
I feel
has been
great,
so
man.
great, man. Yeah, I feel so nourished without anything.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for having me, and I believe we need to have more conversations. like
dude,
this.
this has been incredible. There wasn't one lull in the conversation. I know if we weren't exhausted here, we could go another 4 or 5 hours, which we most definitely need to in the future. So
for sure.
If you guys did enjoy this episode, which if you didn't, well, you
made
definitely
it this
did.
far.
You're,
So
you're like
thank
2 hours
you.
in, so I know
Thank
you
you.
enjoyed it,
Thank
man.
you.
I really hope that you maybe reach out to BioHackZack, reach out to Zach, reach out to myself, comment on any of the, maybe it's on YouTube or Spotify, and just really let us know you enjoyed it, because it's sometimes when you take this journey, it's a really lonely journey, and it can seem almost futile and meaningless, as if like your words carry no weight. And so it really means a lot to receive that encouragement and to know that what we do matters. And that goes for anybody in your life that you see is really pursuing a mission or purpose far greater than themselves. So I would love for you to really comment on it, subscribe, let us know what you found value in. What were some of the most important parts, or where you kind of had a revelation, a light bulb moment, how it impacted you. And so Zach, if people want to find you, you're BioHackZack, I believe. BioHackZack on Instagram.
That's me.
You are creating your own coaching program. I know you recently shifted career from being in a part of almost a company to now creating your own coaching program with all your wisdom and expertise. So
I want to help people reach the highest octave of performance and longevity that their genetics are capable of. So
what type of people should reach out to you?
People that want to upgrade their performance both at work, in the gym, in their personal lives. People that also just want to learn more about themselves. People that want to learn about their genetics, if they have MTHFR and COMT, and want to have a guide to navigating this complex, ever-changing world of biohacking and health optimization. I've been doing this for nearly 10 years, basically as long as biohacking's been a thing. So certainly reach out to me. I'm happy to help.
Yeah, I know you can change a lot of lives, especially on like the health standpoint, your understanding of nootropics, your understanding of how the body works. I mean, there's obviously experts out there like Dr. Andrew Huberman, but as far as anybody I've ever met and personally know, you are by far the most intelligent and wisest person.
Thank you.
So, yeah, man.
I put the hours in listening to those people.
You certainly have, bro. The blood, sweat, and tears, and you've overcome the struggles necessary to get where you are. So I definitely believe in you, bro. I know amazing things are coming. This is only the beginning of your journey. And
it feels like it.
I'm excited for more to come, bro. There's a lot in store for us. I think that we're going to be doing some seminars, some workshops, maybe some motivational speaking, and I'm just going to declare that now. There's some great expansion for both of our futures, bro.
I'm with it.
So, Zach, this is your moment, brother. It was
Colton,
an honor.
Thank you
until
for
next
having me.
time, and
It's
for
been a lot of
everybody
fun,
here,
man.
this is your momentum. We thank you for being on the podcast. We appreciate your ears. Please rate, share the podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode.
And go drink a big cup of water and get to bed early tonight. You know you need it.
Amen. Peace.
Peace.